ChatGPT has launched its App Store and it's grown to over 270 applications with many of the biggest brands in the world. But very quickly, the MCP app standard that ChatGPT apps use is not the only company to accept it. Claude, Cursor, VS Code, and now Microsoft Copilot all accept MCP apps. These companies have well over 1.5 billion users across consumer and enterprise between them, and you can build one app and get it live in all of these stores and platforms. But one thing that's a massive problem right now is how do you actually keep track? How do you gather intelligence of what's happening in the ecosystem to improve your app if you have it, or get learnings to know what to build? And this is exactly why we built MCP App Tracker. It is the first ever tracker of ChatGPT apps and Claude Connectors, giving you the insights that you need to identify opportunities and track what's happening in the ecosystem. And if you have an app, improve App Store visibility. So today we're going to run through the platform. We're going to go through exactly how you can use it, give you some hints and tips, and by the end of the video you will know how best to understand this ecosystem and how to optimize your app for visibility. So this is MCP App Tracker, and you can get it by going to track.appdiscoverability.com, and it covers at the moment ChatGPT App Store and Claude Connector intelligence, and we are, as we speak, adding Cursor and also Microsoft Copilot, and VS Code will come along as well. And the aim here is to basically give you as much intelligence of what's happening in the ChatGPT App Store and in Claude Connectors so that you can better leverage that data for whatever you need in the ecosystem, whether you are looking to stay on top of what's happening, whether you have an app that's live and you need to better understand what your competitors are doing or what's happening in your category or how people are approaching tooling, or even how visible your app actually is in the App Store and how to improve it. You can do all of those things. So we want to give you as much data as possible to do that. And it's the same with Claude Connectors as well. So what is a ChatGPT app? What is a Claude Connector? Let me just explain very quickly. So ChatGPT apps is where ChatGPT has launched its own app platform. So this is when you can build an app on top of ChatGPT so that it actually appears directly inside ChatGPT at the exact moment of intent of a user. And you can actually go and see those apps if you go to chatgpt.com/apps, or if you go into this open sidebar on your ChatGPT and you click apps, you can actually see all of the apps that are present there. So they've got, tons of different ones in lifestyle, tons in productivity, and this will look slightly different depending on the account that you have. So I just spun up a new personal account, but you also have business accounts, for example, where you'll get different apps that are featured. Depends on also geography as well. But nonetheless, you'll be able to go here and see different apps. And if you go here, you can see how some of them work. So for example, with Adobe, you can tag the Adobe app and you can say, I'd like to blur the background of this photo. And then it will just help you to blur the background directly in ChatGPT. So you'll have this visual that will pop up, and then you'll be able to blur the background without ever having to leave, right? So it really simplifies the workflow and means that you don't have to move between multiple platforms. Now, Claude has actually launched the same thing. So they've got something called connectors. Now you can get to your connectors if you go into settings, go to connectors, and then go to browse connections here. And then you've got all of these different connectors, and there's coming up to 200, and we'll go through that in a moment. And there is some crossover of these two platforms, but we will cover the differences. But they actually use under the hood the same standard, which is called MCP apps. And actually what's really interesting is that MCP apps is now becoming a standard that many different what we call AI clients or platforms are accepting. So now an MCP app, you could build one of these MCP apps. So you could build one for ChatGPT, for example, but you could also then deploy that because it's accepted by Claude, VS Code, Cursor, so two development platforms, but also Microsoft Copilot that has over 400 million enterprise customers. So these are ginormous markets. Across these companies, you've got over 1.5 billion users. So it's an amazing distribution opportunity. And actually what's difficult is that there's so much data that's in these app stores, right? That you want to understand what apps are going live, in what categories, what's doing well, what tools are they using. Tools are, for example, almost like features of these apps. How are they structuring them? There's so much data that you can actually gather around this stuff. And so what we've done is that we've built this intelligence platform. It helps you get all of the data that you need. So today I'm just going to quickly run through all the different features so that you can then understand how to use it. So the first thing is when you get to the main platform, you've got this overview here. Now, this just gives you some top level stats. So you can see the number of ChatGPT apps, number of Claude connectors. These are the regions that we cover and apps that go live per week. And you can see here just the growth over time. So it's quite nice to actually see how many apps are getting actually accepted every single day. And also a breakdown of the categories. This is the category that is shown when you click on an app, and then it's the category that's actually given on the information piece here. So you can see here, this is just specifically for the US, but it gives the breakdown of the different categories, which is interesting to see, right? There's a real breakdown of the number of different categories that are being used, and they're really just, I think, exploring all of the different use cases and which ones are most relevant. And what's interesting as well is that this does actually differ quite a lot from Claude. We're going to be adding this data, but there are many different categories that Claude are actually focusing on, and they're much more, as you'd expect, productivity and enterprise focused rather than consumer. Now, the next thing that you can see, and this is a feature that a lot of people love, are just the apps as they go live. So you can see here we're tracking latest apps. Every single day you can see here 17th, 16th, 15th, etc. We're just tracking apps as they go live. So if you ever want an up-to-date view of exactly what's happening with apps going live, you can come here. You can actually just scroll back and see every single app. You can search for an app. So one of the main ones, Booking. And you can do the exact same in Claude. So I've got one of my favorites, which is Scally Draw. And you can just see every single app in order as it's going live. And then another thing that we've got is an overview of keywords ranking. So we are tracking, first of all, specific categories. So you can see here, these are the categories that we mentioned, and these are basically the apps within those categories. So you can see that as a breakdown. But then in addition, we actually have a keyword explorer. Now, what this is we track a large number of keywords. So we have track 104 at the moment. And then what we do is that we are able to say for those keywords, what are the apps that are appearing first and in what order. So what that means is that we have a comprehensive overview of all of the different apps and the keywords across the piece, and then the ranking of those apps against those keywords. Now that's interesting because it means that is a very key indication of how discoverable your app currently is in the App Store. And a really important context piece here is at the moment, there is no organic discovery of ChatGPT apps. We expect that to be turned on, and I will do many future videos on that coming up. But right now, the only way that you can have your app found is actually if someone goes to the App Store, so goes to the App Store that we mentioned here, and actually connects the app. So they have to connect the app, and then they have to tag the app to use it. So your visibility in the App Store is a direct correlation to whether or not people are going to discover and use your app. So if you are appearing, so if we go by an app, you can see, Cloudinary, for example, they do very, very well within the App Store. You can see they actually appear for 5 different apps, and they're ranked very highly for those words. So, sorry, I said this app ranks for 5 different keywords, and then they're ranked very highly for those keywords. So that's what you want to try and achieve. Right now, it's very difficult to do any keyword optimization. So you can't, as far as we know, change as much and impact as much. So if you have an app, you can then go and see which keywords are you ranking for and in what order. So are you ranking first, or are you ranking further down the list? And then that gives you basically a really cool view as to how much visibility am I actually getting in the App Store. And I'm going to come back to this. This is a really important component. Now, we also have some other interesting stuff in the breakdown here, which is authentication. We cover this a lot with our customers. The authentication strategy is interesting to see because many apps approach it differently, and there is, depending on your goals and objectives and how you're looking to further at scale distribute the app, or if you want to capture a lead, there's many different approaches you can have to auth, and it's a big decision to decide, do I want to authenticate or not? There's no right or wrong, but there is definitely a best approach depending on the goal and objective that you have. But it's interesting nonetheless to just see how different companies are approaching authentication and whether or not to capture a lead or to actually just try and get as many users as possible. And then we also have a high-level tool breakdown. Now, this is very interesting because many different apps have approached tooling in very different ways. And we can see here that actually there are many apps, so 50, so a large percentage are choosing to actually just have one tool. So that's a little bit over. And then you've got, a couple with 2 tools, 3 tools, but you can see it's sort of, you've got some that go for more than that. But you can see here, many are actually just going for one tool. And that's an interesting stat because it shows you many companies are actually just going for very simple use cases, simple tool numbers. Tools being, i.e., you can think of them like features almost of an app. And it's interesting to see that so many are going for that kind of structure because there are clearly benefits to doing that. We also advise starting at that point because you want to have really quick tool calling. You want it to be functioning for each app and you want to kind of go live with a simple use case so that people know how to use your app and then they can start to get it connected and then learn from there. So that's interesting to see and we've got a lot more data on that. Now, that is just the overview. What I would then suggest is if you log in, so we can quickly just log in, what that allows you to do is once you've logged in, it will take you directly to the track section. Now, what the track section allows you to do is it means that you can save certain apps. So you could, for example, search by category. Maybe you're interested in design apps. So I can then update it and I can see all the different design apps. If I work in the design category, maybe I want to start to track these apps. Maybe I'm not so interested in this like biology visual app, but I'm very interested in Excalibur. I'm very interested in this chart and maybe Figma, and let's go with this magic pattern. I can then see and track these apps. So that means that it's one really easy place for me to go and find them, and I can then see a little bit more information on them. Interestingly, you can actually see which apps they're, which platforms they're on. And what I can then do is, first of all, just go to this one place where I can access them, but then very soon we're going to enable it so that you can get notifications and email updates on these apps. So we track every single thing that happens to them. So changes in description, changes in tooling, changes in their App Store visibility score. We'll be able to give everyone updates on the applications that they want to track so that they can easily get more information on them. That's when you're in Tracker. If you then go to the general application directory, which is just in here in directories, this is just one place you can go to easily see all the apps. So here, I could search for a particular app. We just had a Shazam launch one. So I've got Shazam here. And you can categorize them in many different ways. Like I said, you could view a category if you wanted to. You could filter just on Claude. You could filter just on ChatGPT apps, and actually you can filter on just cross-platform. So if you want to see who has launched on both, you can do that as well. And what I will also show you is if you then want to see a specific app, you can click into the app. So every single app has a lot of specific detail on the app itself. So we've got this overview section. It takes the main description of the ChatGPT apps. You can see how different apps are actually approaching the main description, showing what they do. And you can see it, this is quite detailed. We actually then show the keywords that you track for, the categories and things like this. We show a visibility score. I'll come back to this because this is really important. And then we show the screenshots and prompts that they use as well. Now, that's just interesting if you want to get an overview. We've also got these other tabs here. So first of all, the visibility score. Now, I will come back to the visibility score because we've got a whole section on it, but in short, we have a whole visibility score that says how visible is your app inside the ChatGPT App Store. So you're able to see the score here, see the keyword visibility, see the listing clarity, and your actual ranking in the scoring system. So Cloudinary is the top ranking app, and you can see, what is the position that it appears in the keywords that it ranks for. So you can see it's got 19 positions in rank 1, and these are all the different keywords that it's ranking for. So if you type in cloud in France, it's going to appear number 1. If you type in cloud in Canada, it's going to appear number 1. So you can see, all of these different keywords across the different geographies. Very cool. There's a delta, which basically shows you has that position moved over time, and they've stayed top, across all of those. We're tracking at the moment the tools for all non-authenticated apps, not the authenticated ones. So we're going to be adding authenticated tooling, but if you've got a non-authenticated app, we do have a tooling overview here that just allows you to see all the different tools, and I will show you more about that in the Tool Explorer. we have a little recommendation tab. This is just to say, how could you actually improve your visibility? And then history as well. Now, history is cool because we track every single change that they're making. Now, we have the oldest database in the world of ChatGPT apps. So we have tracked it, and you can actually see directly the first date that we have data on this specific app. So this dates all the way back to the 22nd of December. ChatGPT App Store went live on the 17th. So we track it all the way back to right at the beginning of this. And you can see every single change that they've made. So you can see this is the first thing that they did. They started to change their description. Then they did some further changes and refinements. So they changed some images in this instance. They went down to 3 from 6. So you can track every single app in the ChatGPT App Store and the history of it, which is cool. Now, other sections are market intelligence. Here is a place you can see new apps. So we had that on the overview screen, but if you wanted to just go to the specific section here, it just allows you to see the feed in one place, so it's easy to access. We then have categories. Now, categories are cool because you can see across each of the different categories how many apps are actually in there, and then you can filter on the categories and then just have a look at the different apps that are available. So this is productivity, but let's say I'm in, I have a travel app. I can then view the category and see all of the different apps that are present there. So it's just quite a nice visual to just see like which apps are in my category and how can I then just look into those and see, for example, like average visibility score, average number of tools, stuff like this. We have also started to track cross-platform comparison. So this just shows you overlap. And I think it's really interesting because you can start to see, okay, which companies have now got this MCP app and they're choosing to launch in multiple stores. And a number of companies are doing this. And you can see here we've got 94 that have actually launched across, 82 that have launched across both the platforms. And these are all of the apps that are doing that. So you can just have a look through and see which ones are going across. And there's a real range here, a number of apps that are productivity focused, but actually they're really across the piece. Lots of consumer apps, all trails and things like this. So worth just having a look and seeing which ones are choosing to focus and do it. I have a bit of a hunch, which is that ChatGPT is taking a little bit longer on approvals than Claude is. And I actually think looking at what apps are in Claude is quite a good way to then see which apps are coming to ChatGPT as they begin to approve more apps and hopefully ramp up the speed at which they're approving applications as well. Now we've got Tool Explorer, and this is, if you are in the ChatGPT app space, this is frankly a gold mine, right? There is so much data available on tools and what tools people are using, and a level down than that, how are they actually structuring that app in terms of the number of tools, but then structuring the tool themselves, the description, the structure of the description, what's included in the description. There's lots to get into here. So what you can do is, first of all, you can actually just see the different types, and it's just interesting generally to see like getting data, searching data are just really key things. If you look at booking, for example, they are searching accommodation. So you can then quickly see that is just going to be get data, right? It's an interesting piece. There is then these, like how these are actually built, and you can see the different structures that we have here in the breakdown of the tools. And then you can actually just search, really any app. So, I just mentioned or we could do like Expedia, for example. So if I type here, Expedia, then I'm able to then get the Expedia tools. So I can then just basically have that filtered, and I can see actually they've got 2 different tools, which is very interesting. And I can see it's a search flight tool, and then it is a search hotels tool. And what's interesting about it is you can then actually start to see, okay, how are they approaching giving their description to make sure that ChatGPT gives the best response. And you can see it's very detailed. So they've got a load of different stuff in here, and you can actually see they do things like absolute constraints, you must never, do not, do not, do not. So they've got a lot of negative prompting, which is definitely something that is important. And it's just very interesting to kind of see across the piece what things people are doing in relation to tools. You can also break it down by like category, for example. If you're in collaboration, you can then see, okay, all of the different tools that are in that space, which again is interesting because you can see what people in your niche and your competition is doing. And I would definitely recommend testing this out. We're going to be releasing new tool features soon because I think it's something that people will want. And then we've got App Store visibility. So this is the score that I mentioned earlier, and you can see here the different leaderboards. You can search any app in here and then just see what they're doing. So if I just saw Lovable there, so I'll click on them. You can go in here and then you can start to see the score. So this takes you back to that page that I mentioned there. Then you can just go back. So you can search any app and then you can see, okay, for that app, how are they doing and how could I improve? But very importantly, you can actually see our methodology for how we calculate this. So we've done a lot of thinking on this. And this is just our framework for how we're calculating visibility. And we've done it across search visibility and listing clarity. And then we give a lot of information on how to actually read the score and then how we've calculated it. So across each of the rankings, scoring, the weighting that we did. So lots and lots of detail there. Do definitely take a look at the methodology. This is meant as a guideline for how you could approach visibility. And that is the main platform. If you want to learn more about how we built it, why we built it, and our team at discoverability.com and Ghost Teams and FAQ, you can do that. We've also got our blog that just links to all of our different announcements, like being at MCP Dev Summit, talks with Statista and talks at MCP Connect, things like this. And very importantly, feedback. So I would love it if you have feedback, ideas, things you want to see. If you have anything that you want to be part of it, then definitely do just chuck it in the feedback section because it really helps us to shape this platform and your suggestions will be directly included in actual updates that we do. Also, please do join the Discord. So we have the largest community of MCP app builders in there. There is loads of people interested in ChatGPT apps, MCP apps, all of this stuff. So a really vibrant community, go and check it out. And then what's really cool is this newsletter. So if you sign up to the newsletter, what you get is you are able to actually see daily updates of all the apps going live. So if you want to stay on track of the ecosystem, then you can do that very easily. You can also switch it to weekly if you prefer weekly updates. And all you need to do is just subscribe and then you will get that information. So that is everything. Hope that was useful. Like I said, if you've got feedback and ideas, definitely reach out to me and hope you enjoy the tracker and chat to you soon.